Yeah.
We are live.
Ready to go?
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome everyone to the special committee of the whole meeting for Wednesday, November 1st, 2023. We'll call the meeting to order. We acknowledge we're in Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Shall you call the roll, please?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Mayor Scott,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Joseph,
Present.
Councillor Gould,
Present.
Councillor Gilroy,
Present.
Councillor Hotelling, Councillor Redmond, Councillor McCormick, Councillor Porter,
Present.
and Councillor Goodwin has sent her regrets.
Thank you, Shelley. That brings us down to approval of the agenda 2.1. So it's a very short agenda for this special committee of the whole meeting. I'd ask for a motion to approve the agenda as presented, please. Moved by Councillor Hotelling, second by Councillor Gilroy. All those in favor say aye. Contrary nay. Motion is carried. Business issues 3.1 municipal heritage property application for alteration advocate United Church. Mr. Boone, Director of Development and Planning, sir, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon. So the municipal heritage application that was in your package, your cow package, excuse me, is based on the fact that our municipal heritage property applications or any changes or alteration to municipal heritage properties go through cow acting, committee of the whole acting as our heritage advisory committee. This is based on an application. The origin of this was an application from the United Church, Advocate United Church. We received the application on October 18th. Prior to that, our municipal permitting and inspection staff has been working with some folks from the church and some advisors that they've brought on board to look at this application. The application is to alter the facade and to remove the steeple of the church. This is a municipal heritage property, so therefore has to go through the process as I've just mentioned. So the purpose of today is to present it to Committee of the Whole and then get you to provide a recommendation to full council. Under the Municipal Heritage Property Act, the Provincial Act, Section 617 requires any alteration or change to the facade of a heritage property must go through this process. We have received an application as noted from the church. It was received on October 18th. I know that the church appreciates the fact that we've advanced this to a special meeting of both COW and of full council to move forward. The church is looking at doing this work in the current year. They have a contractor on standby, as well as they have John Baxter, professional engineer, providing advice. In the background, you can see that the church was originally built in 1857 and was designated municipal heritage property in 1986. And in 2023, they're now looking at doing some restoration work to the church to keep it up to standards. The review that you would see in the package, without getting into too much detail, Your Worship, is a sketch drawing that's been designed and certified by the engineer. But more detailed plans will come as the project progresses, and if council endorses the change, or the committee endorses the change that's requested, and then on to council. Having the church repaired and although altered will result in longevity for the structure, while making it safer for public access. The character of the overall facade is going to be maintained, and the work that's going to be conducted will in fact include some foundation work. So that's why it looks like a bit of an extreme makeover, but the fact is it's going to ensure the longevity of the building. It's a smaller congregation, as we may know. It's probably the only active church remaining in Advocate Harbor or in the Advocate area. So it's important for the congregation to make sure they maintain the building. So, Your Worship, unless there's specific questions, the application as well as the engineer's report were part of the appendices, and there is some history on the church property itself. So I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Boone. So the recommended motion is that Committee of the Whole, acting as the Heritage Advisory Committee, recommend approval of the application to Municipal Council in regards to this agenda item. Someone like to make that motion, please? Moved by Councillor McCormick, second by Councillor Porter. Any questions or comments for Mr. Boone in regards to this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Boone. I'd ask for motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Gilroy. We are adjourned. Thank you, folks. Now, want to welcome everyone to the special council session, November 1st. Well, November 1st. Call the meeting to order. This is a special council session of the regular council. We acknowledge that we're in Mi'kmaq in the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Shall we call the roll, please?
Oh, yes, your worship.
Sorry about that.
Sorry. Mayor Scott,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Joseph,
Present.
Councillor Gould,
Present.
Councillor Gilroy,
Present.
Councillor Hotelling, Councillor Redmond,
Present.
Councillor McCormick, Councillor Porter,
Present.
and Councillor Goodwin has sent her regrets.
Thank you, Shelley. That brings us down to 2.1, approval of the agenda. So everyone would have a copy of the agenda and ask for motion to approve the agenda as circulated, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Joseph, seconded by Councillor McCormick. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Number 3, organization policy bylaw items. 3.1, proposed rezoning for PID 25228214, Municipality of Cumberland. Mr. Boone, please.
Thank you, your worship. This application is a proactive rezoning, so the municipality is bringing the application forward, seeking to proactively rezone the property as noted. It's lands adjacent to Robertson Avenue. This facilitates availability for future residential development. At this point, the property is currently zoned parks and open space, and we're looking to change the zoning to multi-unit residential. The designation under the municipal planning strategy is residential, so it's in alignment with policy, so it doesn't require any changes to municipal planning strategy, just requires the process of rezoning. The current property is a bit overgrown. It's although it's own park, it's unmaintained. It's not part of the municipality's current parks programming or any future plans that we have. As you may recall, your worship and members of council, this property is very close to where the new splash park was developed and opened. So that was a commitment and an investment by the municipality for the adjacent or local neighborhood. The property we feel is best served by the multi-residential designation because it gives more flexibility for higher density development, which could be anything under that zone from 4-unit buildings up to much larger structures. One thing I'll note that our multi-zone allows for 4-unit development by right, which is something we've heard a lot about with the demand for housing, but it also allows us to do site plan agreements for developments up to 16 units. So that is more or less similar to a variance, your worship. And then much larger developments can happen, but they would go through a development agreement process, which is a bit more of a detailed process and does require council's review and approvals, and public hearing and public input is potential of that. Current demand for housing in Spring Hill and throughout the municipality is obvious, and this approach to zoning at this stage we feel is deemed appropriate action to get the site ready for residential development. So thus it's being going to be discussed further in our agenda, your worship, as a surplus property as well. So wanted to note that as part of this process. The new zone, as I said, provides many options for residential development while still maintaining the overall character of the neighborhood. The property itself is accessed, as I mentioned, by Robertson Avenue and would be serviced via Robertson Avenue with sewer and water as well. And the only other thing to note is there is an existing R multi-zone immediately adjacent to this property, and there's an existing apartment building on that structure that's been there for quite a number of years, as you may be aware. So unless there's specific questions, your worship, I will leave the report at that.
Thank you, sir. So there's a recommended motion that council approve first reading of an amendment to Schedule A of the land use bylaw and to schedule a public hearing for the proposed amendment at a future council meeting for the following rezoning. PID 25228214 from parks and open space to multi-residential. Someone like to make that motion, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor Joseph, seconded by Councilor McCormick. Any questions or comments for Mr. Boone in regards to this agenda item? Seeing none, call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you. 4.1, divestiture of surplus property, 25 and 53 Junction Road. Mr. Boone.
Thank you again, your worship. Going to change hats here for a second, talk about surplus properties. This is a desire by the municipality to make more land available for residential development. 53 and 25 Junction Road. We've had a request for a developer that's looking at putting some housing units in place very quickly for a client that would support employment demands from some local employers that have a need for housing for growing staff. This request for 53 and 25 seemed appropriate because it's on obviously the Junction Road, as council's aware, is a street that are going through a major capital project. So these two properties are, although in predominantly residential neighborhoods, are also within walking distance of the downtown Nova Scotia Community College, as well as the major employers in the community, or several of the major employers in the community. Both properties are zoned are low density, lower density residential. And what's I think important to note, working with our Director of Public Works and his staff, these properties have new service laterals put in place, as well as new driveway curb cuts as part of the Junction Road construction project. So lack of a better word, your worship, I think they become shovel ready if we bring them to the market. 53 Junction Road has been migrated into the land registry system. 25 Junction Road has not. So it does alter a little bit about the potential costs to get these ready, but they're in the package under financial implications, nothing of any considerable significance there, your worship. So unless there's specific questions, I'd like to bring this to council for discussion.
Thank you, sir. So the recommended motion is that council declare 53 Junction Road, Spring Hill, PID 252-30970 and 25 Junction Road, Spring Hill, PID 252-30723 surplus to the needs of the municipality, and direct staff to conduct a title search and issue an RFP for groups of properties with the following criteria. Number 1, company profile, bidder, background, 10%. Number 2, project scope, plan for use of the lands, 30% score. Number 3, timing schedule for development of the lands, 30% score. And number 4, price, 30% score. Someone like to make that motion, please? Moved by Councilor McCormick, seconded by Deputy Mayor Joseph. Any questions or comments from Mr. Boone in regards to this agenda item? Seeing none, Mr. Boone, could you just take 30 seconds, just explain the 4 steps through the process, maybe, so would you understand a little better what the intent is?
Yep.
Please? Thank you.
Thank you, worship. The intent is bringing the properties forward for residential or development in general. I think it's important that we have a clear path on what bidders may be looking to utilize the lands for, and to make sure that we don't have potential land speculation. Because at this point, I think just about any municipality in the province are facing the same challenges we have with housing at all stock and all types. So having the 4 criteria allows us to have proposals that have a little bit more detail in them as part of the tender process. The company profile or the bidder background, that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a company or an organization. That's why we have it set up as a company profile or a bidder background. Knowing what the project's going to be, I think, is very important. Timing obviously avoids any kind of speculation on the land. And obviously we still want to score the pricing, because, you know, bringing forward some revenue is also important as part of the overall process. So hopefully that's kind of answering your questions. I think we're going to look, we'll be looking at doing this with several of the properties that we bring forward.
Good, sir. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from Mr. Boone? Councilor Gould.
Thank you, your worship. Yeah, just one, the 53 Junction Road, how big a lot is that? Or is it? Looks pretty small on the map.
It does look small on the map, your worship. I can't tell you the exact size, but I did review it, Councilor Gould. It is usable for residential based on the setbacks in the review. 53 compared to 25 is actually, sorry, not 25. Yeah, sorry, 25 is actually a large lot. So it would have the potential to hold more units, certainly a duplex, and would have potential for even a 4-unit by site plan agreement. So it is a smaller lot, there's no question, but it is developable. We did review it for that purpose.
Great.
So
yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions for Mr. Boone? So, Mr. Boone, a successful bidder was accepted by the municipality. What if they don't meet what if they don't meet the conditions of development, for example, within the timely manner set out in the agreement? What
Yeah.
happens?
Within the actual tender that we'll post, your worship, we will note that the municipality may retain the opportunity for a buyback. So if they set a schedule, let's say it's 18 months or 2 years out to get design, permitting and construction completed, if it doesn't happen within that time frame under the purchase and sale, we would have the option of buying the lands back. So it's not required to do so, but the municipality would have that right under a purchase agreement. Should have mentioned that earlier.
That's great. Thank you very much. I have no further questions or comments. I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Counterminded nay. Motion is carried. Thank you, sir. 4.2, divestiture of surplus property lands adjacent to Robertson Avenue, Spring Hill, PID 252-282-14. Mr. Boone.
Thank you, your worship. This is the property we just discussed moments ago with respect to rezoning. This is an opportunity to bring more lands into development for residential development, I should say. The same approach on this surplus property, your worship, we would bring it forward with the same criteria we just discussed in any RFP process. These properties, as I mentioned during the rezoning discussion, they're adjacent an existing 12-unit apartment building on Robertson Avenue. Although it's low density, that fronts on both Mechanic and Elm Street, which kind of box in this property. It's certainly an area where residential development makes sense. It's very close to the high school, won't be a very long walk to the new elementary school, and still considered very walkable from the downtown. So we feel this is a really good property to bring forward as a development site. The reason we brought this forward, we did have expression of interest from an outside developer, and it makes a lot of sense for us to bring forward as part of the rezoning. We talked about an R multi zoning because that gives them more flexibility for options. So even more important in this case with a larger parcel, your worship, to have those criteria assigned and attached to the RFP. The lands are accessed via Robertson Avenue. And in addition, I've discussed it with our engineering director and his staff about getting connections to water and sewer, and actually reviewed that in the field with a number of the public works team. The department directors have all been engaged and discussed this property actually a number of months ago, your worship, and then in more recent times to make sure it didn't have any requirements under our municipal programs. As I mentioned in the rezoning discussion, the site is overgrown and it's out of the old zone for park. It's not utilized in any of our programs. And the commitment, again, earlier noted, is the splash pad was the investment and commitment to the neighborhood for recreational space. With any residential development that gets to be larger scale, your worship, we always have the opportunity to make sure that green space and some amenities are part of those developments. So that would be something that we could bring forward as part of the rezoning and any special site plan agreements or even development agreements for multi residential developments that are outside that by right developments that would occur. The only thing to note is the property hasn't been migrated, so we would bring it forward through that process. Our outside counsel are very familiar with that process. I do note there would be a requirement for subdivision and survey, but it would be our intent that any purchaser would be part of offsetting those costs, and they're estimated between $3,500 and $5,000. But that would be again part of the purchase and sale agreement. Getting these lands. Excuse me, your worship, back into potential purchasers' hands that are developers. I think it's key for us to move forward and getting some more residential development happening, specifically in Spring Hill, but working forward on any of our surplus properties in the same manner. So unless there's specific questions, the recommendation would be to use the criteria we talked about in the previous. So company profile, project scope, use of the land, timing and scheduling for the development, and of course, pricing. There will be a formula that will be to help us determine pricing, because we get multiple bids. Top bid gets, points, and then you score it down accordingly. So we have a formula that we use in our tender processes. So that would be part of the scoring on any of these surplus properties with criteria. So.
Thank you, sir. So the recommended motion is that council declare lands adjacent Robertson Avenue, Spring Hill PID 25228-214, surplus to the needs of the municipality, and direct staff to conduct a title search and issue an RFP for the sale of property with the following criteria. It's identical criteria above. I don't think I need to reread that. Council's aware of that. So someone would like to make that motion, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor Joseph, second by Councilor McCormick. Any comments or questions for Mr. Boone? Deputy Mayor Joseph.
Thank you, Worship. I think it's really good that council is moving on our surplus properties due to our current housing crisis. And there's developers out there who are staring at these properties and sitting still and nothing's happening with them. And as we know, our biggest issue right now within the municipality of Cumberland is housing. So I want to thank every counselor here, especially in the staff, working on this from myself and probably from my constituents. Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments, Mr. Boone? Just migration, Mr. Boone, how long does that take? If you decide to do the migration process, how long will that take?
Well, we put the pressure on the outside solicitors, your worship. It can happen in probably as quick as a week. There shouldn't be any real issues on title on this one that we can see. There's a clear tax deed from the early 70s. So I don't think title will be an issue in getting it migrated. The only reason it's not in land titles, your worship, it just hasn't moved since land titles became a reality in Nova Scotia. So it's, any property that the municipality's held for a period of time. And I can't actually tell you because as we get older, our memory kind of leaves us a little bit, but I can't tell you how long we've had land titles, but we'll safely say it's in more recent times. So for sure. I wasn't looking at you, your worship, when I said
no,
that.
I realized you looked at our CAO when you said that.
I report to
you.
him and I
Yeah.
report to you. So I didn't intend it was for myself. So.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Explanation. Appreciate that. If there are no other comments or questions, call with question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Counterminded nay. Motion is carried. Thank you. 4.3, this is the Mr. Boone show. Oh, sorry,
I've had
Councilor
some.
Hotelling. Sorry, did I miss your first question? Sorry.
I'll declare a conflict
Oh,
of interest for
okay.
the item.
Thank you, Councilor Hotelling. 4.3, appointment of building official. Mr. Boone, Director of Development Planning. This is yours as well, I believe.
Thank you, worship. This is actually a good news story. Well, I'm hoping everything we bring forward is usually a good news story, but not always. This is an appointment of Samantha Stewart. Samantha's been working with our building officials team, and she's been going through the formalized training that NASBOA and the Provincial Building Code Training and Certification Board has in place. Happy to bring this recommendation forward, your worship, because Samantha, she likes us to call her Sam. So Sam has been an employee of the municipality, has worked their way up through building and permitting inspection, has embraced this training and has done a great job bringing herself to this point where she's now has passed all of the required training and has been certified by the provincial body. And so at this point, we're just really looking to appoint her as a building official for the municipality. And I know Dave is quite proud of this. So I think it's a good thing. It's an awesome thing to bring forward today. So.
Good, sir. Thank you. So the recommended motion is that council appoints Samantha Stewart as a building official for the municipality of the county of Cumberland. So I'd like to make that motion. Moved by Councilor Redmond, seconded by Councilor Dorward. Any questions or comments in regards to this agenda item? Seeing none, call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Counterminded nay. Motion is carried. Thank you very much for that. Really appreciate that. And 4.4, municipal heritage property application for alteration Advocate United Church. Mr. Boone.
Thank you, your worship. And this item came before the committee of the whole, acting as our heritage committee. I think everyone remembers that. So we're
Yeah, I do. I remember.
Yeah, it's in the previous meeting. So in fairness, your worship, to the process, the recommendation from the committee of the whole, acting as heritage committee, which met earlier today, that approved this application. So as I just quickly restate, the application was for alteration to the front of the church. It means removal of the steeple. The one thing that the commitment in the design with the engineer and the stewards of the church is to bring it back, bring that steeple design back to something that's appropriate to the architectural design. So I know they're conscious of that. The church itself is committed to the community. It is not a large congregation, your worship, but it seems like a very dedicated congregation in the conversations I've had. So under this section 17 of the Heritage Act, it does require council to approve the request. I think the package is pretty self-explanatory as far as the details that we have the date on the work they want to do. I always step back when we look at these applications and think about the group that's supporting it. I think that's as important as the information that's in the package. So at this point, they've got some good professionals on their team, a well-established contractor, but also Mr. Baxter and his team are some of the most respected engineers that we have in the region that do this kind of work. So I think keeping the longevity of the building in place, as I mentioned earlier, is very important, and that commitment to maintaining as much of the heritage character as possible. So unless there's specific questions, your worship, I think I talked through it a little bit more detail earlier.
Thank you, sir. So the recommended motion for 4.4 is that council accept the recommendation of the committee of the whole, acting as the Heritage Advisory Committee, and approve the heritage application to alter the Advocate United Church. Someone like to make that motion? Moved by Councilor Hotelling, seconded by Councilor Gould. Any questions or comments for Mr. Boone in regards to this agenda item? Deputy Mayor Joseph.
Thank you, your worship. So is it true that if you fix the steeple, it will keep the people?
Your worship,
No, it's okay.
it's a public meeting, so I'll get answer to Councilor or Deputy Mayor's question later.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. If there are no other questions or comments for Mr. Boone, I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you. 4.5, divestiture of surplus property, 22 Drummond Street, Spring Hill. Mr. Boone.
Thank you, worship. I actually thought I was done, but sorry. Yeah. Your worship, thank you. This is a property that was brought before council in the past. 22 Drummond was a property we brought to council, had deemed surplus, and then brought it through a process, an open process, but we had a minimum bid, your worship. And when the tender was issued, based on the minimum bid at the time was $10,000, we did not have any bidders, your worship, on the property. So in discussions with the CAO, we thought we'd bring this property back to the table. And what's kind of advanced that maybe happened a little sooner than we planned was the interest by developers to get sites available as quick as possible for residential development. I've always seen this as a great little lot for development, but also to ensure that we get sites under development, as I mentioned in some earlier presentations, we are setting the same criteria for any bidder. So some profile or background on the bidder, whether it's a company or an individual, private citizen, project scope, the timing and schedule for the development of the lands, and of course, pricing. So this is a property that has been migrated. It is ready to essentially ready to go. And we'd like to bring that into an open tender without a minimum bid this time, your worship, but with the criteria in place. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So the recommended motion is that council have been previously declared 22 Drummond Street, Spring Hill, PID 252-272-73 surplus to the needs of municipality. Now direct staff to issue an RFP for the sale of the property with the following evaluation criteria, identical to the criteria for the aforementioned properties as well. So I won't recite those again, but they're in the package for council. Someone like to make that motion, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor Joseph, second by Councilor McCormick. Any questions or comments for this agenda item for Mr. Boone? Seeing none, we'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you, sir. And thank you for all your work and your staff, Mr. Boone, these agenda items. Just really appreciate it. Considering the huge demand for development, no different here in Cumberland, we appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you, your worship.
Now that brings us to the end of our agenda. I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Councilor Gilroy. We are adjourned. Thank you, folks. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and thank you, staff.